Hi everybody, my name is Chris and welcome to my channel. In this video, I am participating in the Just Our Imagination challenge. And let me tell you, we got some crazy items to work with. So with all that being said, let's begin. DIY number 1. Well, in this first project, we will be using a foam board. I am going to be using the whole foam board, and depending on how you would like to use this, you might need 2 of them, but more on that later. I'm going to first start by taking some of this fusible adhesion spray. It's the iron-on type of spray, and it actually worked out pretty well. I was surprised. But I'm going to spray that all over the foam board. I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to go ahead and measure to see how long this foam board is so I can go ahead and cut some fabric. I just picked up some of this red fabric from Hobby Lobby, and the Christmas fabric is 50% off, so a whole yard of this only cost me like $3.50. So once I get that cut down, and I believe the measurement of the board was 20 by 30, so I cut my fabric out, adding an extra inch. So I cut it out at 21 by 31. But I'm going to go ahead and lay this on top of my foam board, and I have a mini heat press. It's the only iron I have upstairs with me, so that's what I'm using. But I just got mine on medium setting, and the directions say to do it in sections, so that's what I started out doing. And I was like, I don't get it. But anyway, so I just started doing nice smooth strokes along the fabric, mainly to get the wrinkles out. And then I, would focus on applying a little bit more pressure on each section. And once that adhesion has dried, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the sides up over the foam board, and I am just going to use some hot glue. I figured this is the back. I don't care if it's lumpy. Nobody's going to see it anyway. And once we got those sides all glued up, we can flip it over. And I have got these lights that I had picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I got them a few years ago. I needed just a couple bulbs off of it, and this is what I had left. So I think now I am finally going to be able to use this up and get it out of my stash. But I want these lights to go across the top of my board and hang down. So I'm just going to go ahead and support where I want it to lay. And then I'm going to use some hot glue, and I am going to secure both of those ends down. Once that glue is dried down, I'm just going to trim off any of the excess wire, and I want to staple for some extra security. So I'm just going to move that board off to the end of my craft table so I can get it laying flat without the bulbs interfering. And I'm just going to pop a couple staples in on each side. All right, once I got those lights all adhered and secure, I am going to grab some of this green jute twine that I had picked up a while back. I got it from the garden section at the Dollar Tree. So hopefully you guys have some and you're like, what the heck am I going to do with all this? I'm going to go ahead and figure out how I want it laying on this board, and I'm just going to wrap it around, and I wrap it around 3 times. And before I secure that twine in place, I want to put some kind of embellishment on the front, something in a gold. I had these from the Dollar Tree off of something. I have 2 of them, so I don't even remember what they came off of, but I was contemplating on putting those down. I also have one of the metal Believe pieces that you get in a pack. You get like Believe, Peace, and Joy, I believe. Believe. But I decided that I would go ahead and spray paint that in a metallic gold, and I think it looks pretty nice on the top, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And now that I got it figured out on what piece I'm going to use, I'm going to go ahead and trim off that green jute twine from my roll, which just happened to be on the other side of my table because it rolled off. And I'm going to trim that up, flip it over, And on each end of the twine, I'm just going to tie a double knot. That way, when I glue it down with some hot glue, it just has more surface to make contact. I don't know, it just sounds like it would give it a little better hold. And when you're gluing that down in place, you just want to make sure you have it nice and taut. And then for some extra security, where I put those knots, I'm just going to put a staple on each end. Next, I'm just going to kind of tug on the strings a little bit because I want it tighter than it actually is feeling at the present. So I just pull it and put some hot glue, and then I'll go ahead and pull the other side and put some more hot glue, just making that line tighter. And once I've got that line all secure, I'm just going to take some Eileen's tacky glue, and this is the Turbo Dry Strength, and I really like this stuff, and it adheres so well. But I didn't want that lumpy, clumpy hot glue, so I'm going to use it, and I'm just going to put it on the back of the sleeve side, and I'm going to smooth that out with my finger and place it right on top. And then I'm just going to take a baby wipe and wipe off any of the glue that came out from underneath the believe sign. And on a good note, I didn't notice any of the glue after it dried. Next, I'm just trying to get an idea on how I want to decorate it. First, I've got these little wooden mini clothespins, and I'm going to attach a few of those to the line, and that's how I'm going to attach my Christmas cards to this sign. But I figured I wanted a little something extra because there's not always going to be cards on it, and I thought it just needed something else. So I figured these snowflakes would be pretty, or I kind of contemplated on putting something on the clothespins, like I had some little snowflake stickers that you could always adhere to the to the clothespin. I also had some little gingerbread men that I could always attach there. But I don't know. You guys have to let me know in the comments. How would you have accessorized this sign? But if you don't have any of those wooden clothespins, don't despair. You can also, because this board is made of foam, you can use push pins. Now, if you decide you want to use push pins, I would suggest using 2 foam boards. Or if they make a thicker foam board, I would go that route. But if you use 2 foam boards, then of course you'll have to glue those or adhere them together to make them thicker. But you can definitely accessorize this any way you like. This is just an idea I had to use this foam board, and you guys will have to let me know what you think. Here's the finale. DIY number 2. Next, we have straws, and I don't even know if you can call this a DIY. It's more of a hack, but I've got some of these straws you can get from the Dollar Tree. This is just what I had on hand, and I wasn't about to buy any more straws because I got enough of them. But I am going to take a straw, and I don't know the measurements. I just know that I looked at the 2 larger lines just past the 1/2 inch, and that's where I cut all my straws. And being this light strand has 20 lights, you're going to need to cut 20 of them. And then when we are done, you are going to have the straws that look like this. Now, this idea is just for, say you have some lights laying around the house, you don't want to go buy any more, but all you have are the clear lights, and you're having a little party, or you just want some colorful lights. So I'm going to show you how we can change the color of the lights with some items that you probably got on hand. Pretty much all we're going to do is adhere these just like so. I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue, and just a little, to put just a very little bit right on the edge, just to get this light to stay. And then you're just going to do that to all of your straw pieces onto all of the lights. All right, then you have a strand of colorful lights. Let's put them on the tree for the final reveal. And I'm so happy once again to be participating in the Just Our Imagination Challenge. This challenge is co-hosted by Kathy at Kathy Joe DIY and Brenda at Rustic and Lace DIY. And this month's special co-host, we actually have two of them, and they are the Busy Housewife and Craft Away with May. I will have these ladies linked in my description box, so make sure you go and check out their videos. Also, check out the playlist that will be linked in my description box and see everybody who is participating in this challenge. I'm sure we are going to see some exciting creations. And if you are just coming in from the playlist, and if this is your first time here, welcome. And I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button and become part of my DIY family. And to all of my existing subscribers, thank you guys so much for your support. And with all that being said, let's continue. DIY number 3.
Okay, I've got some wine corks. I picked these up at the Goodwill bins, and they charge like $1.59 per pound. And this didn't even weigh half an ounce, so I got these really cheap. It was a score for sure. A score for sure. And let's see, I'm going to use 2 of them. I'm going to go ahead and take my miter shears. Cut that one right there.
So I've got these sticks from my backyard. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any that had the little like extension pieces off of them. So I'm just going to makeshift some. I'm just going to take some hot glue and I'm just going to glue one stick to another, making kind of a X shape at the top like you would see on antlers. And then once it dries, I'll just trim that off and there we go. Just got a little different shape. And then I'm just going to trim down to the height that I think I'm going to need. These are going to serve as antlers. And this is our Q-tip challenge. So I've got these Q-tips and you will need 3 of them. But I'm just going to take 2 of them and cut them in half to start with. And then on one of them, I just want the tip. So I'm going to cut one of the tips off. And then I am going to use that stick. And I just want to make sure that they are all the same length. So I will trim them up. And that long piece without the tip on, without the Q-tip parts on them, the cotton part on them, I am going to be using that as a neck for a deer. And so I just got an idea of how long I want that neck. My next step is I am going to paint every piece of our Q-tips that we cut up, with the exception of this single Q-tip piece, that small piece we cut off. I'm going to paint all the other ones brown. And I am just going to use a DIY paint since it is a paint that I know will stick to just about everything. And this one works out good, but I think you can use any chalk paint. I am next going to take that piece of cork that I trimmed and I am going to file it down a little bit. I don't like that clean cut or the way it looks. So I'm just going to take that filer and I'm just going to try to kind of round around the edges, and then in the center there, I'm just going to kind of rub over it, trying to get rid of some of that freshly cut appearance. Just don't rub too hard because these do break pretty easily. Next, I'm going to take this little poker tool and I am going to poke right in where we filed down a hole. And then I'm going to take this little red bead off of a pick, and that bead has a wire attached to it. So I'm just going to stick that on in the center. Next, I need to attach this shorter piece to the longer piece, and I'm just going to drill a hole like you see here, and you don't want to go all the way through. And then I'm going to take that piece that we painted that doesn't have any of the cotton on it, and I'm going to shove one end through that hole, and then I'm going to get an idea where I want this to go, and you can see where I'm drilling this hole. And I'm going to trim that down a little bit because I don't think our deer needs that long of a neck. And I'm just going to use my miter shears because they cut a lot easier than my scissors. And we're just going to put that piece in that hole after I make it a little larger. And you can most definitely glue these pieces as you are putting them in. I'm not going to worry with that. Now I've got to figure out where his little antlers are going to go. And I'm just going to drill some holes in the top of the head. And you just want to make sure you go slowly with this. Like I said, you don't want to go all the way through. And then next I've got this hat, and I had picked up these hats from Amazon, and I got the green and the red ones. I'll be sure to link that in the description box in case you're interested, but I want to go ahead and slip that hat on his head. And I wish I would have pulled it down a little further, but hey, it is what it is. And I am going to push those antlers in through the little holes in the hat. And then we'll just push those in the holes that we created. Next, I am just going to position the hat how I would like it sitting. And like I said, I wish I would have gone down a little further with the hat so I could have had more of a rolled up brim, but I didn't. So I'm just going to go ahead and take some hot glue, and I am going to tack it down on the top of the hat and around the back side of the hat just so it doesn't slip off.
All right, now I need some legs. Oh, Lordy.
Some things just make me laugh and giggle, but anyway, thought I'd share that with you guys. But I'm going to drill some holes on the bottom section of the cork in order to put those little Q-tip pieces in to serve as his legs and feet. And when you're putting those in, make sure you have them kind of bent at an angle a little bit. That way, when you go to stand it up, it is level. And we're going to go ahead and do that 4 times for each leg. And I'm going to play a little bit out in real time because, well, I just got so tickled.
And now he's got some little feet. He's too top heavy. Oh.
And that's why those legs need to be kind of angled apart just right. And we should have one piece left, and that's that little cotton part that we cut off. I'm just going to take some pliers and I'm going to squeeze the end, just kind of flattening it out a little bit. And then I'm just going to take some hot glue and I'm going to glue that right where he should have a tail. And then he is all complete. You guys will have to let me know, what do you think about this little cork reindeer? I think he turned out so cute. DIY number 4.
Okay, so I got to do something with this, guys. I mean, come on, an air freshener can?
All right, so I am going to first start off by removing the paper that they have on this. And this is a pretty easy thing to do. And you don't have to be perfect when you're removing this paper because we will be covering it up. Next, I am going to take the color Linen Toile by Folkart Matte, and I am going to paint the cap or sprayer part. And I'm going to paint that all in that color, and I do 2 coats, and I also paint the top of it. And once that's dried down, the little piece, the sprayer nozzle, I am going to paint the inside of that red. Now, I know you guys are probably thinking, what is she doing with this? Well, I'm going to put a picture up here, and that picture is what popped in my head when I saw this can. So just keep that in mind. But then I am going to take a pink color, and around that rim there's just a little ledge or little high spot just all around in that oval shape, and I'm going to paint that pink. And then since I'm a messy painter, I am going to touch up any place that I got the red and pink on. And then once we got that dry, I have got a paint stir stick. This is just one I had grabbed from Walmart, and I am going to cut off a 2.5-inch piece, and I'm going to do this 2 times. Next, I'm just going to take some Eileen's Turbo Techie glue, and I am going to glue the short long side. Well, you guys can see what I'm doing here. I'm just going to put some glue on the skinny part of the long side, and I'm going to glue that to the flat surface of the other piece. Boy, I hope that makes sense. Some things are hard to explain, but you can see what I'm doing. Next, I've just got some craft paper, and this paper came out of a book I had picked up from Hobby Lobby, I believe last year. And I want to wrap this around the bottom section of our can. And I am just going to go ahead and Mod Podge that on after I figure out how much to cut off. Okay, so next I am going to go ahead and put a layer of Mod Podge on the entire can, the area that we painted and also over the paper that we put on there. I'm just doing this to help keep it protected because it's an air freshener can, and when this project's done you can still use it as an air freshener can. So we got to protect the paper and the paint from our hands. Okay, so next our little wood piece is dry, and I have got this music sheet scrapbook paper that I picked up from Hobby Lobby, and it's the one that they have all year round. And I'm just going to take that scrap paper and I am going to wrap it around these wood pieces because these wood pieces are going to become a hymnal. And I'm just going to take that scrap paper and just rub it around, and I'm just going to call it a hymnal or a book, but I'm just going to wrap it, and where it folds I'm going to rub my fingers across to give it a crease. That way I just know how much of this paper I'm actually going to need. I'll take my pencil and I'll just mark along the edges where I need to trim it down. And that doesn't have to be too perfect because we can always take some sandpaper and sand that excess off. And then I'm going to cut off all the excess. And now I'm just going to go ahead and take some Mod Podge, and I am going to Mod Podge this paper to the book. And I just start on the inside of the book and work my way around with the Mod Podge. And as I'm doing this, I'm making sure to press firmly to make sure I don't have too many air pockets in the paper. And you also want to make sure you get along the skinny section as well, since the paper makes contact there. And when I get to the inside of the book where it's meeting the other piece of wood, I'm going to just kind of rub my fingernail in there to make sure it's laying flat. All right, and after that's had a chance to dry and I put a layer of Mod Podge on it, I'm going to take the color plaster and paint where the pages would normally be. I didn't quite like that it was so white, so I've got this Luxe Metallic Gold paint from Paint Couture, and I am going to paint that around that rim. My mother used to have this old Bible that had gold tipped pages, and that's just what I thought of. Okay, I've got some of this burlap ribbon, and it's some stuff that I had from the Dollar Tree, and I've had it in my stash for a while, and I'm just trying to get rid of it. But I'm going to go ahead and cut off a piece longer than I know I'm going to need, because that's just what I do. And once I get that cut off, I'm going to take it down the center and I'm going to pinch it together. And then I'm just going to take some hot glue and I'm going to glue that in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim a little bit around the ends. But once I've got that done, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to put it around the edges of this just to keep that burlap from folding in on itself. It was driving me crazy, so I'm hoping this will work, and it seems to be holding up just fine, keeping them out like it's supposed to be. While that Mod Podge is drying, I am going to take this silver tinsel wire and I am going to shape it into a halo. And to do that, I'm just going to form a circle, and then I'm going to take the short piece of the end and twist it around the bottom piece. And easy peasy. And then I'm going to go ahead and take our burlap, and I'm just going to twist the long piece around the center. All right, the next thing I need to do is I need to go ahead and attach this. And I am just going to go ahead and take some hot glue, and I am going to glue this piece on the back of our can. And then I'm going to take some hot glue and I am going to go ahead and tack down the top part of that longer piece of tinsel wire just to keep it from flapping around. And look, it's an angel with a halo and some wings. And this hymnal, I want to go ahead and I'm going to use some of the Eileen's tacky glue, and I'm going to glue that in place. Now, look back at that picture and tell me you do not see those Charlie Brown characters singing when you look at this can. The only thing I missed is this was an image that popped in my head. So I didn't even think about looking it up to see how accurate I was. I just went with it. But when I looked at this picture, I was like, oh, well, I didn't do the tip of their nose that you could actually see on the top there. But that's okay. You could always add that yourself. I think it's cute just the way it is. It's real sturdy. I've used the can, and yeah, I didn't spend a whole lot of money to make it. Let me know, which of these 4 projects was your favorite?
Less the cat.